Hi, and welcome to another episode of Naked Talks with Beyond the Bedroom.
This is our first broadcast for July. It's gorgeous here in Boulder. Wherever you are, we hope you're hunkered down and are excited to join us for this week's topic, all about the genitals. Before we get started, Naked Talk is where we get naked in a conversation of sexuality, intimacy, and relationship. We strip down and expose the bare facts so that you can learn what it takes for your love to thrive.
Yeah, and I'm Dan Powers, one of the founders of Beyond the Bedroom. And tonight we're going to talk about genitals and why they're important to us. Obviously we know why they're important to us for certain things, but there's a lot more to our genitals than meets the eye.
That's actually the title of our class that we'll be teaching again sometime later this year. So look out for that. But what we're going to do now is just provide a few teasers to get the conversation started about this really very sensitive topic. And by the way, I'm Elizabeth Wood, partnered with Dan in our exciting venture Beyond the Bedroom. So how would you like to start?
No, I thought you were going to lead off.
Okay, well actually I have a little game to play that when we have a live audience, we actually throw all these names up on a whiteboard. So for all of you listening, and we're going to throw out a few, let's specifically talk to the women in our audience. What do you call your genitals? Everybody think about that for a little bit. What names do you hear that are used to refer to the female anatomy? Genitals is one of them. Female anatomy is the clinical term. Should we throw some out?
Sure. Vagina, pussy,
yoni,
snatch, the famous one from Oprah Winfrey, the JJ.
Oh yeah, the JJ. The down there, the Neverlands or the Netherlands, down south,
Muff burger,
tuna lunchbox, bloody slit, of course the C word, which, well, we might as well say, some people call it the cunt. That's quite a derogatory term in some places. And there is a whole faction of women that are taking that back and trying to reclaim that as something very powerful.
Yeah, I think it's just a word, and people have used it for such a long time in a negative connotation, but it really doesn't need to be. And if women take it and own it, then I think it's great. Use it.
Right. But I'm just trying to kind of get the flavor of what's going on here for the names that are used to refer to women's vagina, the vulva, the yoni. Did we already say yoni? The snatch box, the gaping hole. It's kind of, well, shall we say, more of these are negative than are positive. So let's, for a second, just...
Or not very empowering, at least.
No, definitely not very empowering. So let's, on that note, Dan, nice segue, turn over to the men. What do you typically refer to or hear referred to when talking about male genitals?
Right, the cock, one-eyed love missile, one-eyed heat-seeking love missile, the purple monster.
7 inches to heaven, the joystick, the Johnson.
So again, if you do the contrasting between the women's genitals and the men's genitals, the men's are usually much more empowering. They, talk about vigor and masculinity and power and conquer and that kind of thing. Strength.
Yeah, and a lot more positive. You rarely, unless a guy is seen as too small, I mean, maybe shrimpy, wiener, that was one from the olden days, and of course penis and all those types of words, the clinical. Lingam is actually the word that matches yoni. But again,
Vajra.
Vajra. Oh, I haven't heard that in a long while.
Yeah.
Vajra. These are very empowering compared to the list we just went through, and you all may have very different ones to add, and we hope that there are some more positive ones in there as well for the women. But when we put this up on a board in a classroom, it's literally maybe 2 times, 3 times the length of negative names for women's genitals than there is for the men's. Mm-hmm. We were talking to a friend of ours earlier this evening, and she said that she was involved in a project where an artist was actually asking women to think of a city or think of a river that they could use to call their genitals. And he actually wrote stories and poems about it and turned the entire project, I believe it was in 3 cities, London, somewhere in France, and then they ended in Germany. And I'd like to find out more about that project, but he wrote stories about what that was all about. So kind of interesting.
And I guess the idea is really to empower women around their genitals. You get these nice bodies of water, powerful rivers that have been there for centuries, carved out from the land, this path that they've taken. A nice, usually meandering, powerful, able to carry commerce, very much like women are really the seat of life.
Flowy, like the river. Cities, I think that would be kind of cool. Paris, maybe. Some are exotic and some are sexy. I would imagine that the women who chose cities might have chosen something that was reminiscent to them of something special. So I'd like to find out, again, more about his poetry or poems and see if we can maybe read one to you at a later date. So we definitely want people to claim that. I'll tell a funny story. When I was a sex therapist, we discussed this with a couple. I worked with another gentleman. It was a co-therapy team. And
not me.
Not Dan, a wonderful gentleman who's now a professor in Minnesota. Shout out to Brian. We asked the couple that we were working with to name their genitals, and this was a clinic where we met the couple once a week. So we left them with that homework assignment, and the next week they came back. I'm sure I told you this story, honey. Mm-hmm. Came back, and we asked them, what did you think about very empowered names for your genitals? And I kid you not, the woman said, oh, let me go first. I named mine Elizabeth. And then the gentleman went and said, and I named mine Brian. Okay, well, both Brian and I, my co-therapist, and I went in for supervision for, I think, a half an hour after I practically swallowed my teeth. So don't name your genitals after us. Definitely not.
Unless that's empowering to you.
Oh, no. I'd like you to name your genitals something other than my name. But it really was a funny story, and that's another part that I think is really important to talk about here is fun and spicy and playfulness really should be had around some of these otherwise very serious and taboo conversations. That couple,
you get somebody like Oprah Winfrey that can't call it even vagina or vulva, and she's got to go the JJ. And I think one of the issues that we have in our society is that when we rename our genitals to something that is weird, then it makes talking about them weird, and talking about sex weird. And we do that with our children. We call it our pee-pee and our wee-wee or down there or something like that, and it really starts to create this stigma around our genitals from almost the day we're born about them. Sorry, I cut you off.
No, you didn't. Well, you might have, but that's okay. This is a flow conversation. So I'll just end the name game with my sex therapist, my mentor, who taught me everything I know about sex therapy. She used to say that the men are very public and the women's are privates. So publics and privates, because ours are hidden. We can't see them. So that actually might segue into a little bit of the anatomy class, because I think that's really important for our viewers, our listeners to know. And there's a lot of misunderstanding, because quite often women won't take a look at their genitals. We need to know, there you go, honey. We need to know their shape. We need to know their size. So we'll really quickly, again, this isn't quite an anatomy class, but hopefully Dan's going to be able to share the screen with you. Okay.
There we go.
There we go.
Hey.
Big and wide. Surprise! Hope everybody's prepared for that. So let me put on my sturdy glasses. Okay. So let's begin at the top with the mons pubis. Right here, the drawing shows that there is pubic hair. A lot of women these days are shaving almost to completion. They might have the landing strip, little tiny tortilla, taco, what are they called? Dorito triangles. Or they may leave it full and in their natural state. So that's the mons pubis, kind of a fatty mound.
And one thing I was going to mention about the pubic hairs, it's only a recent thing that pubic hair started to disappear. It's, I think, for pornographic reasons. People wanted to be able to see something besides just this puff of hair. And in the early days, they weren't really showing they were showing pubic hair. They weren't really showing inside so much. And now with it all shaved, you get to see a lot more of it in the lips and everything else.
And again, it's personal choice, but I want women and men who are listening to remember that that hair there captures the scent, that yummy, musky, fresh, whatever it may be. It captures the scent of the woman. So when we shave that all off, some of the naturalness goes away. Again, personal choice. So we'll move down to the prepuce of the clitoris. That's actually towards the back of the clitoris, up along the shaft.
AKA the hood.
The hood. The glands of the clitoris is that little pearl jewel bud that everybody, some women actually like direct contact. Other people actually are too sensitive. Other women are too sensitive and they can't have direct contact. So that is the zone where you want to focus on for pleasure. Riding that ridge here, riding that ridge here. Yummy, 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 yummy. But of course, women, learn about your own anatomy so that you can share this with your partners. Going down.
That's a little bit about what this is about too, is just learning about your own anatomy as well as the anatomy of the opposite sex, so that you can understand a little bit better how to provide pleasure. And always make sure you check with the woman as well, because some women actually like direct stimulation and some don't. So where a lot of women will really love that stimulation, the others, it might be too sensitive. And also, it can be too sensitive before there's a lot of arousal. If you just go straight to the clitoris, that may be very sensitive and not allow them to really drop into the pleasure feeling with that. And also want to note, too, that the clitoris is more than just the head here. Unfortunately, the picture we have doesn't depict it, but there's a lot more to it. There's the clitoral stem, and then there's the clitoral legs, which actually go up into the vagina itself along the pubic bone.
And in our class, we go more deeply into it. We kind of have a 3D depiction of it. And our friend Sherry Winston, fantastic author, she actually calls it clitoral network. There are lots of things going on there, and it has as much erectile tissue as a man's penis. So we digress. We're going to go down to the urethral opening. Unfortunately, a lot of people will rub this area. This is where women urinate from. And if this is rubbed, thinking it's the head of the clitoris, this can more than likely result in a lot of pain, otherwise known as urethral tract infections, UTIs. So be very careful. The clitoris is at the top, underneath a hood, almost at the wishbone of the outer and inner lips. So right here we have the labia majora, otherwise known as the outer lips, and the labia minora, the inner lips. So there's that, actually looks so much like a wishbone right here.
I really like the way Sherry Winston referred to it. She doesn't like and first of all, it's too clinical, labia majora, labia minora. And the labia minora sometimes are fairly large and can appear larger than the labia majora. So she likes to call them the inner and outer lips.
She definitely does. Yep.
Yeah. So I like that.
I do too. And stay tuned for more. We're hoping to have Sherry Winston out here to teach live and in person. So right here we have, I'm not going to go through all of it, this is the vaginal entrance. Usually for women with the bigger inner lips, it'll all be crinkly and crunched up together, squished up together so that this opening is, I mean, it's not a gaping hole there. It's a little bit more difficult or tricky to find. You can see the color variations here. This is heavily enriched with blood vessels, much like the penis. All of this will fill with blood and become completely engorged during arousal. Right here, the last whole orifice that we have down here is the anus. And a lot of women get pretty let's just say wigged out about the anus. There are a lot of nerve endings. It's incredibly sensitive around here. So if that's something that you want to explore or are seeking to find more pleasure there, we recommend that any type of anal play, we have to be very careful for sanitary reasons not to cross-contaminate, because any fecal material that is exposed here and taken up into the vagina can result in an infection. So lots more about that. You know, I think information can help dispel some of the myths or some of the fears around the anus. And some women may find a new pleasure zone, a new erogenous zone. And women, too, have a perineum. That's the space between the vagina, right here, and the anus. And there are a lot of little pleasure centers in that as well. Corresponds to the male perineum, which we'll probably go to right now.
Well, no, actually, I'd like to cover a couple things with the vulva, too. So first of all, the vulva is this whole area out here. So a lot of times it's kind of used synonymously with vagina, but vagina is really just the canal that's right here and not the whole exterior side of things. So want to make sure that that's kind of clear for people. And also going back to a point that Elizabeth was making a few minutes ago, when you are stimulating the anus and going back to the vagina, it can bring bacteria, and that's one of the reasons why women have a lot more UTIs, is because their urinary tract is much shorter than it is in a male. So the bacteria has a chance to crawl up there and get into the bladder more easily than it does for the men, and therefore they, I think, have a lot more urinary tract infections as a result of that.
So use gloves, and always arousal is really important in any type of anal play before you move into anal play, and lubricant, really, really important.
And just be careful, because a lot of times people will use something like Purell on their hands to sanitize, and you don't want to get Purell on the vagina or the vulva, any of those mucous membranes, because it can sting pretty sharp. All right, ready to go into the male?
Oh, certainly.
Okay. All right, male anatomy. No less complex, but we're a little bit more familiar with it because
they're public.
Right, they're the publics. So we'll go ahead and talk. We start with the bladder. We'll start at the top. It comes down to the prostate, the seminal vesicles, which is where a lot of the pre-cum comes from, and then I guess I will go ahead and start down here. You have the scrotum, the epididymis, which is where the sperm is stored and then is brought into the prostate during ejaculation. Now, during ejaculation, the prostate does close off from the bladder. There is a flap that will shut the bladder off from the semen so that it's not, it doesn't get carried through there. The urine in the bladder acts as a cleansing agent for semen, for many things that are in the urethra of men, and it would kill the sperm. The penis, so we got the prostate, the penis, the glands, the urethra. Here's the urethra that comes in, where urine as well as semen travel. And the corpus cavernosum, corpus spongiosum are two of the different areas that make up, actually there's two corpus cavernosums or spongiosums, I forget. But they make up the erectile tissue in a man's penis, and when they get erect.
Men have
the
them
anus,
too.
yeah, men have an anus as well. And then you can actually access the prostate through the anus, which is something that can be very pleasurable for men. Again, men need to be very relaxed when you go up through the anus. But you can also access it really through the perineum, which is right in this area here. You can kind of feel this spot, we call it the $1 million spot, in men, and that can push up against the prostate. And when a man is ejaculating, that can feel very, very pleasurable.
I want to talk a little bit about why genital awareness and positive genital self-esteem is important. We have so much shaming. Remember, we just went over those names, the awful names for women. There's so much body image shaming, body image issues. It actually also has moved down, if you will, to our genitals. Women have been ashamed because of the smell, because of the size, because of the color. Men as well have been, not because of color, but certainly because of size. And it's something that more and more therapists and counselors are seeing. It's something that is rarely talked about, but there is a genital self-esteem scale that a lot of sex therapists will use in their office. And it's really important for us to go over this as to why it's so important to have awareness of your own genitals. And if you're in partnership, explore and be an adventurer with your partner and explore his or hers. So genital awareness reduces stress. Stress, am I too big? Am I too small? Do I smell different? Do I look different?
What's my partner going to think of me? There's a lot of, like with body image issues, there's so many people that are afraid to take their clothes off because if they see, they've got some belly rolls, or they're not quite the six-pack that you're seeing on the commercials and advertisements. Same thing with like for men, especially the penis size. Like if I'm not big, does that mean I'm not a real man, or any kind of less of a man, anything like that? So very huge issue. So stress will be reduced if you understand some of the stuff we're talking about.
And most women don't really understand that the lips are different sizes. Nobody is symmetrical unless they've had what Dan and I really hope that this class or this, what do we call these, naked talk, really will dispel the myth that women have to have perfectly asymmetrical lips. I mean, one boob is larger than the other, unless you've had plastic surgery. There are a lot of women who are actually looking into labiaplasty. And, oh, please, now, it makes my heart just skip a beat. Labiaplasty will reduce the size of a woman's lips, her vaginal lips. And what most doctors won't tell you is that there will be, anytime there's any kind of cutting, any type of surgery, that will result in scar tissue and desensitization. So in order to look perfect, which there is no such thing as perfect, you're perfect the way that you are, the way that your body is made, the way that you are here and now. And to go for labiaplasty really does more harm than good. So please, please get to know your genitals and learn to appreciate the different size, shapes, smells that make up your own body before going into something, going under the knife.
Can we talk about that a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think it's important to note that our question, why is it that women are doing that? And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that most of our education around sexuality is through porn.
Yes.
And in porn, if you look at Playboy, when Playboy started off, they didn't even show genitals. And as they started to expand and into that realm, and then the hair started coming off, then they were looking for the petite lips. They didn't want those lips that were hanging out there for everybody to see and just considered unappealing, I guess. I don't know, but
just like they choose the largest man who has, that's another word, member, that has the largest penis, the largest cock, that shows better on TV, on film. They choose women who have a specific genital type, and that's a whole nother categorization, another class that we go into. Because just like you have a different size nose, different shape eyes, our genitals, the man's penis, there are 9 categorized different shapes and sizes, and the same with us women. And so most of those women, if they haven't had labiaplasty, fall under the type with the smallest inner lips. So please don't compare yourself to anybody. Even I have 3 sisters. None of us look alike. We don't. Not only do we not look alike in terms of our face shape and our body shapes, but one might think that our genitals might look alike. Well, why? And I've actually done a little research and asked my very brave sisters to describe their genitals to me, and all 4 of us have different shapes and sizes. So really get to know your own anatomy, and we'll get back to this. It helps reduce stress. It helps reduce depression. There's higher desire levels when you can explore and see if tugging the inner lips, or perhaps your partner might suck the inner lips or kiss the inner lips. Really exploring can increase the desire. It helps build confidence, knowing more about your genitals. It's a real confidence builder. It helps you understand your partner more, because if you're curious about your own genitals, then you're going to be curious about your partner's, whether he is male or she is female. And then lastly, it helps you become a better lover, because not only can you talk about your own pleasure zones to your partner, you're more aware of what the different sensations are. So that's why we feel it's really important to go over all of this with you.
Yeah, one of the things that I was going to say a few minutes ago is when women understand their genitals better, especially the look and shape of them, and understand that not everybody's the same, and they typically get their idea from the Playboys of the world or porn that's out there. I've had a number of women that I've coached, and we've talked about their genitals, and they were very ashamed of their genitals because they did have fairly big lips, or they were odd sizes. And when we were able to show them that there are a number of different types, sizes, shapes, then they felt so much better, so much more relaxed about their own genitals, that they were able to relax in general when it came to nudity, sexuality with their partners, whatever it might be around their genitals. It really helped them to be present and be empowered around their genitals too. And genitals are such a source, or can be such a source of huge pleasure for us, that going to get labiaplasty, where if you cut off that skin, that means you're cutting off nerve endings, and you're potentially building scar tissue, which is deadening the sensitivity. One of the horrible things, and we won't get into it in this segment of Naked Talks, but circumcision. We lose sensitivity when we're circumcised, and unfortunately we as boys don't get that choice typically, because it's done as infants when we really don't have a say in what's going on. Yeah, like a couple days old.
Yeah. So anyway, we digress. But again, let's go back to that issue of play. Be curious. Be your own adventurer. Take a look, women, and more often than not, we're going to position ourselves in front of a mirror. Have nice lighting. Take a bath, and explore, see what's out there, and then bring that play into a partnership. Ask him or ask her, tell me what, show me. So few men, and I'm talking now in heterosexual relationship, so few men are ever given permission to actually look and explore and enjoy. And that can be not only a real...
The women's genitals.
The women's genitals, yes.
We're used to doing that.
yes, in relationship, that can be actually a real turn on and a real anxiety reducer, because you know what? They don't have the same parts as we have. And so sometimes from girlfriend to girlfriend, partner to partner, because we're all so different, mine may look very different than his past partners. And so if he's exploring and fuddling around in the dark, thinking that my pleasure points are going to be the same as his old girlfriend's, it might not work for me. It just might, but then again, it might not. So be curious, play, and have fun. Take flashlights.
And
you know?
us as men, we're not typically given permission to look at the genitals of a woman, our partner, or anyone else for that matter.
Unless it's in secret and through Playboy or in porn.
Right, right. So by sharing this gift with your partner of letting them explore too, it's really empowering not only for you as the woman, but also for the men or your partner, if it's a female partner as well. Exploring the different nooks and crannies where its certain sensitivities are, where it's pleasurable, where it may not be pleasurable. I think it's just brilliant to be able to explore that. One of the things that is done in the surrogacy work is through Masters and Johnson, they created something where they did a body tour. And in that body tour, it really kind of shaves away the shame around our bodies because it's out there in the open and we're not trying to hide it. And the same thing goes with the genitals. Do that exploration so that what you might be ashamed of, might be concerned about, once somebody takes a look at it and doesn't have that judgment that you're actually putting on for yourself, and that goes for both men and women, then it really reduces the shame level in there.
And that's a really good point. So the importance of understanding your own genitals. To know another, it's really important to know yourself first. What we're hoping that all this information does for you, our audience, is that it helps heal any type of genital shame. And I actually wanted to bring up a point. One might think that the men who have the smallest penis size are actually ashamed or have some type of maybe drama or some type of issue that they're really concerned about. And that's not specifically and only the case with the smaller men. Mm-hmm. There are men who are more endowed and have larger penises, and they come into consultations with us, or when I was a sex therapist, they have sometimes as much shame and as much difficulty as their brothers who are shorter. And if you think about it, because some of those men who are very large, they may be dating or have dated women who have very short vaginal canals. And if they're with a partner who's this big, or even
not just short vaginal canals, I mean, they could be like an average canal, and if they're so well endowed and they're thrusting up against their cervix, then that'd be really
then they're
painful.
Causing a lot of pain for their partners. They may have experienced that 1, 2, 3 girlfriends in their sexual history, and so it shuts them down, and they're afraid that they're going to hurt a future partner. So I just want to kind of normalize that it's across the board for men as well as women. And I'm certainly not saying that all men have genital shame. I'm not, and nor do all women. But we're finding and we're hearing more and more that the larger men have just as much difficulty as their smaller brothers. So I wanted to bring that out. The importance of understanding genitals and your own anatomy is that it dispels prejudice, or what we're calling the Playboy myth, that everybody has to look like the men. Do they even make Playgirl anymore?
I don't think so.
Okay, so gosh, did I date myself? Or did I just dispel a secret that I had only once looked at a Playgirl magazine? Women don't really get titillated visually, which is probably why the magazine folded. Men are much more visual, so they love looking. Where the women,
my understanding is there are more men that bought that, more gay men that actually bought that than women.
Oh, well.
That could not be true. I don't know that for a fact.
It just wasn't that much of a turn on, which is why it went out of business. But anyway, knowing your own anatomy and that of others really helps take away the Playboy or the porn myth that everybody has to look like this if they're a man, or everybody has to look like those petite sort of tulip or orchid-like women that are shown in the porn films and in the porn magazines. I actually meant to get, before we started this Naked Talk, they're beautiful, beautiful color photograph books. Two, one for the men and one for the women, have been photographed and put together by our friend, a Kodoshka teacher, Muki Okan, and maybe we will put how to get in touch with or how to purchase those books on our Facebook and website page. There's another book called Petals, and it's beautiful. There are women that are tattooed, women that have hair, women that have no hair, women with different skin color, men of different skin color, shapes, and sizes.
Well, Petals doesn't have men in it. Petals just has women.
Petals just have women?
Yeah.
Okay.
But the value of Petals is that you do get a variety of different vulvas with the smaller lips, larger lips, misshapen lips, different sized lips, and everything in between. Older women, younger women,
it's a gorgeous
petite
book.
women. Yeah, it's really a beautiful book, and highly recommend it for women who are thinking of labiaplasty and what they might want to go through. It's like, please don't.
Please don't.
Yeah.
Please be kind to your genitals. Be kind to your lips. Love them. Don't cut them. And then a Tantra teacher in Australia, Andrew Barnes, he has a beautiful color photograph book, and they're stories. I'm not sure if they're stories or they're poems. And then I'll give a shout out for a site that's not quite developed. Dan is putting together Yonipics, YONIPICS, and that is going to be developed so that women can share stories and post anonymous pictures, not for pornography purposes, but pictures of their own vulva as an empowerment tool. So look for Yonipics as that gets further developed.
It's actually out there already and is accepting pictures. If you want to sign on and submit some pictures of yourself, we go through a little questionnaire so we understand the woman, and it's completely anonymous. But if you create a user sign-on, then as we add functionality to it, then you can always go back in and play with, so to speak, your pictures. One of the things that we want to do is the genital typing that we've alluded to a little bit here, based on the Kodoshka teachings. And that's really, really valuable. They've categorized the genital types for both men and women into 9 different categories. And we found most people fall into one of those categories, varying over a number of people, but as a result of that, people are able to identify themselves and feel much more at home and, again, empowered around their genitals.
Oh yeah, it's fascinating to hear stories with women, or share stories with women who share your same what we've referred to genital typing. I know that for me, it was great to know and find other women who had my same genital type. And more on that later, because I don't want to tell quite yet what type my genitals are. Again, I'll quickly go down our little bullet list of the importance of knowing your genitals. The more you know, the more you can understand your likes and dislikes. That goes back to that being an explorer and an adventurer, and then sharing that with a partner.
And that kind of goes back to the early days of young adulthood, when I know for myself, masturbation was always shameful. We didn't masturbate. You couldn't do it. You wouldn't want to get caught. So we never really explored ourselves. It was really the look, over both shoulders, do the quick jerk off, and then boom, we were done. So we really didn't understand or explore the pleasure areas of our penis. And I think that carries forward into adulthood. Even when we're with our partners, we know what it is that works for us. We do that. It's tried and true. And then over time, it stops working as well as it did. But we don't know any better to explore other things unless you've gone through some training like we've done.
Yeah. So take some time. Devote an hour women, it takes us longer. These guys are the microwaves. We're the slow cookers. Take some time. Be curious. Find out what your arousal levels can be. Pulling here, tugging here, rubbing here. Do all that kind of stuff on your own, in private, with plenty of time and plenty of lube. And then, again, as we say, bring that to a partner.
Yeah, one of the things that we didn't mention when we were doing the anatomy tour is that women have as much erectile tissue underneath the surface as men do externally. And it takes 40 minutes for that to be fully aroused, and it's much more pleasurable. And Sherry Winston talks about that, and that's one of the reasons why we're going to try to bring her into Colorado. But explore that, play with that for yourself. Notice how over time you change as well. I mean, just like
the
men
color
get erect,
changes, the puffiness changes.
Exactly.
More plump.
Yeah. Masters and Johnson discovered that 40 years ago, 40, 50 years ago now, I think, when they were doing their studies as well. All the blood vessels in there, engorgement, great stuff.
It's yummy. Feels good too. So lastly, we really want to help all of you understand that there are differences. Let's be honest. We want to caution you to remember no two people are exactly alike. So explore, have fun, take a look, and usually what I do in class is I actually bring out mirrors and I say, who's willing to explore at this moment? And that's my joke. People usually gasp, thinking that I'm asking them to do it now. But take a mirror. And really what I also like to say is you best be able to pick them out of a lineup. And I'll tell you a little bit of a story about that. When I was a sex therapist in Chicago, we actually handed our clients, our female clients, a genital self-esteem scale. And I asked questions about, are you familiar with the texture, the colors, the size, the type of hair you have, kinky, curly, smooth, thick patches. So the client that I was working with was very silent that entire time. And I'm, as a therapist, you are taught to sit with those silences. So she's doing one of these and closing her eyes. And I can only imagine that she's imagining what she looks like, trying to remember what she looks like. So finally, I said, is there anything that I can answer, or any questions that you have, because we're basically trying to determine if you know the shape, the size, the coloring, what it looks like. And she looked at me very seriously and she crossed her arms. She said, well, I wouldn't be able to pick them out of a lineup. And for those of you who know my belly Santa Claus laugh, I burst out laughing, thinking that that was the funniest thing. So just think for a moment about this. Ladies, can you pick your genitals out of a lineup? I think it's brilliant. I think it's hilarious. And believe you me, I went home that night and I took out my mirror and my flashlight and I made sure that I saw whatever identifying marks on my own set of genitals to figure out which one was mine if I put them up in a lineup. So please, by all means, make sure you can pick them out of a lineup. Okay. So let's see. We have about 15 more minutes. Do we have any questions?
Nope.
All right, no questions just yet. And
if you do have a question, feel free to submit that. You can just go on the chat button on the right. It should be on the right of your screen, and type something in and just submit it. If you want it to be private, then by all means make it an anonymous message to us, and we will not share your name. Otherwise, your name does show up on the screen, whatever sign-in you created. And we know this is a sensitive topic around sexuality, and some people just don't want to share that. I'm one of those odd people that I really don't care what people think, so I like to share myself.
But you can find that over, say I'm looking at the chat thing too. You can, there's a function that says you can make this private or make it public. Hey, there we go, publics and privates again. So a lot of people have had sexual abuse issues. The topic of genitals and any type of genital touch can be quite triggering. For those in our audience who may have experienced any type of sexual trauma or drama, which I basically define as uninvited and unwanted exploration or touch, these issues are best addressed with a trusted counselor. There is a tremendous amount of brilliant work that can be done to help a woman or a man overcome any issues of past sexual abuse. It's a very tender and very tricky thing to do alone. And with a trusted therapist, counselor, you begin to learn how to rewrite your own genital script. But when all the power has been taken away because of that power over paradigm, it's really important for the men or women who have been afflicted with sexual trauma to ask, and it's actually it's mandatory for our partners to be incredibly patient with us as we rewrite our own script. Because again, when I was a sex therapist, there was a man who had a full beard who came in for counseling, and he just could not have his face touched, and his wife came in and she just loved, the facial hair and wanted to touch it and wanted to caress it. And every time she went near him, he would bristle and he would move back really quickly. And she felt rejected. And so over the course of the therapy, he came to understand more and more about an experience that he'd had in his childhood where he was slapped multiple times as a child. Well, so what would he do? He created a buffer. And there was a point where, do you need to look at that? There was a point where, his subconscious kind of took over and protected him. And he then recalled at an early age that slapping. So in the course of therapy, working with me and also with his very gentle and patient and loving wife, he was able to actually he was actually able to guide her hand to a place that felt safe. And then when he'd had enough, he took her hand gently away. So by the end of the course of our time together, it's really fun. He actually shaved his beard and came in one day completely clean shaven. He looked like a completely different man, not only because he had taken off all the facial hair, but because his whole demeanor and his whole sort of inner wounding had been healed, and he looked younger and more joyful and more playful, and he was able to experience the yumminess of full touch. So I used that example. Yes, it was his face, but I used the example because it's even more, I shouldn't say more, it's as sensitive when we're talking about sexual drama, sexual trauma, sexual abuse. So be very patient. There are many excellent books out there. I'm not trying to therapize right now, but there are excellent books out there. And please seek counseling because you too can experience joy and pleasure with your genitals, even overcoming issues of previous abuse. So I digress. I hope that's okay. It's a little bit of the former therapist in me.
All right, that's what this is about.
Yep. So we have a cheat sheet. Let me just make sure that we've covered everything that we wanted to. We've covered, we do have a number. Hey, I wrote some down. I'm very good. We have a number of excellent resources that may also be very helpful to our audience. There's one that we found in the bookstore here in Boulder. It's part of the curriculum at Naropa University in one of their sexuality classes. It's called the Cunt, yes, I said the word, the Cunt Coloring Book, and we have that too. It's they're beautiful illustrations that men and or women can color inside the lines, outside the lines, and in that book there are illustrations of all different types of vulvas, big, small, thin lips, thick lips. It's by a woman, T. Corine, C-O-R-I-N-N-E, the Cunt Coloring Book. Please don't pay more than $7 for it. Call the Boulder Bookstore because Amazon had them for like 30. It's ridiculous.
Or even 100.
Do they have them for 100?
100.
It's still in print, so you know, it's a paperback, and it's definitely shouldn't ever be more than $10. What we were referring to, the teachings of Kodoshka and the genital typing, those illustrations and way deeper descriptions of the different types are in a book, The Sexual Practices of Kodoshka.
By Amara Charles.
Amara Charles, that's right. Vagina, a new book biography by Naomi Wolf. That's like a must-have for any sex therapist or former sex therapist.
Or somebody who wants to explore and understand vaginas.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, sorry. I recommended that to most of my female clients. The V book. Otherwise, that's much better. By Elizabeth Stewart and Paula Spencer. Women's Anatomy of Arousal, the book that we've been referring to by our
Sherry
friend
Winston.
and author Sherry Winston. Here, this is what the books are called by Mukee, M-U-K-E-E. Her last name is Okan, O-K-A-N. Masculine Power, Feminine Beauty. Of course, the Vagina Monologues. That is, there are probably DVDs out there that you can watch. They come out live in most big cities around Valentine's Day. So please check out the Vagina Monologues. Really, really empowering stories about women who have gone through abuse or trauma. They've become very empowered in sharing their stories with us, general audience.
And if you get the chance to see it in person, I highly recommend it. I mean, it's so much fun to go and hear these stories, and just beautiful. I mean, some of the, everything from trauma and hurtfulness to beauty and empowerment
and all
playfulness.
ages, and bring your Kleenex, both men and women. First of all, you're going to be laughing, and then you may be crying because the stories are just they're mind-blowingly beautiful.
Touching.
They're very touching. Oh, honey. A Mind of Its Own by David Friedman.
So this is a book about the penis and the history of the penis and where it came about from. I think early Roman days to today, and includes Viagra, when they thought that the penis was filled with air.
Air?
Yeah, they thought it was inflating by air. So before they started to understand things, but it's really an amazing book on the history of the penis.
And that leads us right into the last book called The Book of the Penis. And that's by Maggie Paley, P-A-L-E-Y. And David Friedman, A Mind of Its Own, is F-R-I-E-D-M-A-N. And anyone who wants these, please contact us, and we can get this list out to you in whatever form that works for you. And before we sign off, I definitely want to remind you all, if I see any of you in the street or any of you, in any of the conferences or classes that we do, please come up to me and tell me that you can pick yours out of a lineup. So let's tell them a little bit about upcoming events. I also want to, before we sign off and get into our regular business, I want to thank our sponsor, Tantra Dakini, the online resource for materials relating to sacred and spiritual sexuality. Check them out at tantradakini.org. Without them, we wouldn't be able to do these naked talks for you, which we do the first and third Tuesday of every month.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you want to talk about what we do the other Tuesday?
Yeah, so a number of different events that we have coming up include the fourth Tuesday of every month. We do a in-person thing in Denver.
A live event.
Yeah, and the next one is actually all about blowjobs with Rhoda Lipscomb. She's done some of these classes for us in the past, but we're going to be doing this again with her in a more intimate setting, so it should be a lot of fun.
Tips and techniques on blowjobs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So definitely check that out. It'll be the fourth Tuesday of July. I think it's the 29th. And what else do we have coming up?
And that's here in Denver. We're really gearing up to create more online
there
content.
in Denver, since we're here in Boulder.
Oh, we're here in Boulder. So for those who can't come to a live event, we are creating more online content so we can reach a wider audience. We are in the beginning stages of planning for Sherry Winston. We've got
a number of different people that are going to be coming into town that we're really excited about as well, and you can find that on our website. But we're also really excited because we've just moved into a new place, and we've been discombobulated since ASECT a while back, and then Tantra PM people being here. We're now getting ready to start creating some content of our own that we'll have available very shortly for purchase. So we're really excited about that as well, now that we're going to have some time to really focus on that.
And then in September, we're having the aromatherapy foot massage. Is that September?
The reflexology.
Reflexology.
Yeah. Erotic reflexology in September, so stay tuned for that as well. We're really excited with the lineup of things that we've got coming out for you, and the classes that we're going to be coming up with as well. We think you'll enjoy them, and
we want to hear from you. What are you curious about? What would you like to learn more of? We are very easy to connect with. I think we're very easygoing people. You can reach us at Elizabeth@bedevents.com, Dan@bedevents.com, and our website is bedevents.com or beyondthebedroom.com. Please join.
No, beyondthebedroomevents.com. If you go to beyondthebedroom.com, you're going to go to some mattress company.
Oh yeah, whoopsie. Okay, and then please like us on Facebook. That's where we post our announcements. We're getting ready to write another newsletter, so you'll be up to date if you sign up to receive our monthly newsletter. So that about wraps up tonight's Naked Talk. We want to thank you all for being part of this very potent conversation. It's our belief that everything starts with a conversation between friends, between lovers, between partners, between parents and their children, of course age appropriate. But that's what this Naked Talk is all about, is conversing, bringing these topics to the table so that they're not shrouded in secrecy, not shrouded in shame. The more informed we are, the better and healthier choices we can make first for ourselves and then for our relationships. So please join the conversation. You actually can submit questions prior to...
if you submit a question, when you register for the event, on that page there's a place that you can submit your questions, and then we'll take those questions and research them, and we won't call out your name or anything like that.
It's all anonymous.
We'll keep it anonymous, but any question, the hardest question to the simplest question, there's no such thing as a bad question, because anything that you're not aware of and need education on, and we're happy to try to provide that. And if we can't or don't know the answer, then we will certainly try to find somebody who does and get that to you as well.
Because that's who we are. We're educators. We're bringing all this information to you. And guess what? It's really fun for me to learn new things as well. So try to stump me. That'll be really fun because it'll certainly generate lively conversation between us, and then we'll bring it back to you.
Yep.
So everyone, thank you so much for joining. This will be broadcast to our YouTube channel. A link will go out on our website and Facebook page as well.
Right, you can find our YouTube channels Beyond the Bedroom. It'll be there shortly.
I don't know that kind of stuff. I leave it to him. Thanks, everybody. We'll
Have a
see
good
you
night.
in 2 weeks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.